My name is Amadou Diallo. I was born beneath the endless skies of the Sahel in northern Mali, where the wind carries more dust than rain, and every sunrise reminds us that another day of survival is a gift. I was never a wealthy man, never a soldier, never a politician. I was simply a husband, a father, and a herder who believed that an honest day's work and sincere prayers were enough to please God. My life was quiet, ordinary, and almost invisible to the rest of the world. If someone had told me that millions of people would one day hear my story, I would have laughed and returned to tending my goats. The Sahel teaches you lessons that no classroom ever could. We learned patience from waiting for rain, courage from facing danger, and gratitude from sharing the little we had. Every morning, before the sun climbed over the horizon, I would spread my prayer mat on the cool sand, thank God for another breath, and then lead my small herd across the dry plains in search of grass. Some days we found enough to feed the animals. Other days we returned home with almost nothing. Yet even in hardship, there was peace. My wife would greet me with a warm smile. My children would run into my arms, and we would thank God together for keeping us alive. But life in northern Mali was changing. The sounds of birds at dawn were slowly replaced by the distant echoes of gunfire. Villages that once welcomed strangers with tea now closed their doors before sunset. Every journey carried uncertainty. Every unfamiliar vehicle raised suspicion. Every family knew someone who had disappeared, someone who had fled, or someone who would never come home again. We prayed for peace, but fear lingered in the air, like the dust storms that swept across the desert. Even in those troubled days, one name was spoken almost everywhere: Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Around evening fires and in crowded marketplaces, people debated him with passion. Some believed he represented hope for a stronger Africa. Others questioned whether any one man could truly change the destiny of nations. I listened more than I spoke. I had my own thoughts, but I never imagined his name would one day become part of the most extraordinary experience of my life. Everything changed on a scorching afternoon that looked no different from any other. The sky was clear, the heat shimmered across the sand, and I was guiding my animals along a familiar path. I remember hearing an engine in the distance, then another. Before I could understand what was happening, sharp cracks split the silence. Men shouted. The animals scattered in panic. My heart pounded as I dropped to the ground, praying that the shooting would stop. Then I felt it. A burning force slammed into my chest with such violence that it stole the air from my lungs. I collapsed onto the hot earth, staring at the endless blue sky above me. The voices around me grew faint, as though they were sinking beneath deep water. My hands trembled as I pressed them against my chest, but the warmth spreading between my fingers told me what my mind refused to accept. I whispered the name of Jesus with the last strength I had. Darkness rushed toward me. Then, just as my heart gave its final beat, something impossible happened. I opened my eyes, but I was no longer lying on the ground. People often ask me if I was afraid when death came. The truth is, I never saw it coming. One moment I was running for my life across the dusty plains of northern Mali. The next, my heart had stopped, and I was looking at my own body, lying motionless on the ground. Before that terrible day, my life had been wonderfully ordinary. I woke before sunrise every morning, kissed my wife goodbye, and walked into the vast Sahel with my flock. The desert was both harsh and beautiful. Some mornings the sky blazed with fiery shades of orange as the sun rose over endless stretches of sand. Other mornings, a cool breeze carried the songs of distant birds across the dry grasslands. I had little by the world's standards, but I never felt poor. Every meal shared with my family, every laugh around our evening fire, and every prayer we whispered before sleeping reminded me that true riches cannot be counted with money. Yet beneath that peaceful life was a growing shadow. Violence had become part of our daily conversations. Travelers vanished without warning. Villages emptied overnight. Mothers prayed anxiously whenever their sons left home. No one knew what each new day would bring. Still, I believed that if I stayed faithful to God and harmed no one, He would continue watching over me. That belief was tested on the hottest afternoon of my life. The gunfire erupted without warning. The sharp cracks echoed across the open land as frightened animals scattered in every direction. Dust exploded into the air around me. I dropped to the ground, my heart racing so violently I thought it would burst from my chest. Before I could crawl to safety, something struck me with unbelievable force. The pain lasted only an instant. Then, nothing. The noise disappeared. The heat disappeared. Even the fear disappeared. An impossible silence surrounded me. I opened my eyes, expecting to see the dusty ground beneath me. Instead, I found myself standing. I looked down. There, only a few feet away, several terrified villagers were gathered around a man lying motionless in the sand. His clothes were covered with blood. His face looked strangely familiar. Then I recognized him. It was me. I stared in disbelief. My body lay completely still while I stood unharmed beside it. I tried shouting to the men who were desperately trying to save me. I am here. I am alive. No one answered. I waved my arms. Nothing. It was as if I no longer belonged to the world they lived in. A strange realization settled over me. I was no longer inside my body. I had crossed the boundary between life and eternity. At first, I expected terror to consume me. Instead, an indescribable peace began flowing through me. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced on earth. Every burden I had carried, the fear, the pain, the hunger, the uncertainty of life in the Sahel, simply vanished. I felt lighter than air, as though every sorrow had been lifted from my soul. Then I noticed something extraordinary. A brilliant light appeared in the distance. It was not like the sun. It did not hurt my eyes. Instead, the light seemed alive. It pulsed with love, warmth, and holiness beyond anything human words can describe. As it drew nearer, I saw figures emerging from within it. They looked like men, yet they were clearly more than human. Their garments shone like pure white silk, touched by living fire. Their faces radiated joy and peace, and their eyes reflected a kindness so deep that every fear inside me melted away. I somehow knew without being told. They were angels. Not one of them spoke with their mouths, yet I understood every thought they communicated. Their welcome filled me with assurance. Do not be afraid. The Lord has sent us. At that moment, I felt completely known. Every question in my heart was already understood. Every hidden fear had already been answered. One of the angels gently reached toward me. The instant our hands touched, we began rising. The earth beneath us grew smaller and smaller until the deserts of Mali disappeared into the distance. Mountains, rivers, oceans, and continents unfolded beneath us like a beautiful painting. Then even the earth itself faded from view. Ahead of us stretched a path of glorious light, unlike anything I had ever imagined. It was brighter than millions of suns, yet perfectly gentle. The light did not shine merely around me. It seemed to pass through me, filling every part of my being with overwhelming joy. As we traveled, I heard music. No orchestra on earth could produce such beauty. Every note seemed alive. Every sound carried peace. It was as though all of creation was singing in perfect harmony to its creator. Then, suddenly, we stopped. Before us stood a brilliance so magnificent that I instinctively fell to my knees. From the center of that glory stepped a man. His robe shone whiter than freshly fallen snow. His face radiated both unimaginable authority and indescribable compassion. His eyes held galaxies of love. When they met mine, Every wall around my heart collapsed. Without anyone introducing him, I knew exactly who stood before me. Jesus, the one I had prayed to all my life, the one who had carried me through every hardship, the one who had welcomed me before I even spoke a single word. I fell with my face to the ground, overwhelmed by his holiness. Before I could say anything, he gently called me by name, Amadou. His voice was unlike any voice I had ever heard. It carried power that could command the universe, yet it was filled with the tenderness of a loving father welcoming a child home. Then something astonishing happened. Without a screen or a book, my entire life unfolded before us. Every childhood memory, every prayer, every act of kindness, every selfish decision, every hidden motive. Nothing was missing. Nothing was distorted. I did not merely remember my actions. I felt how they had affected other people. I experienced the joy I had brought to others, but I also felt the pain caused by my careless words, my impatience, and my failures. There were moments that filled me with gratitude, and others that left me weeping. Yet through it all, I never sensed condemnation, only perfect truth and perfect love. Jesus never looked at me with disgust. He looked at me with eyes that said, "I have always known you, and I have never stopped loving you." As tears streamed down my face, I thought my journey had reached its end. I had no idea that the greatest revelation was still waiting for me. I remained on my knees, unable to lift my eyes. The love flowing from Jesus was unlike anything I had ever known. It did not make me feel small, it made me feel seen. Every wound I had carried throughout my life seemed to disappear in his presence. Time itself no longer existed. There was no hunger, no thirst, no fear, only the overwhelming reality that I was standing before the King of Heaven. Then Jesus stretched out his hand. "My son," he said gently, "there is something I want you to see." The moment his hand touched my shoulder, the glorious place around us faded, and before us appeared what looked like the earth suspended in endless space. It was breathtaking. I could see oceans shimmering like polished glass, towering mountain ranges, vast deserts, forests stretching beyond the horizon, and countless cities glowing beneath the night sky. But as I looked more closely, I noticed something I had never imagined. Each nation was surrounded by an invisible spiritual atmosphere. Some shone with rays of hope breaking through darkness. Others seemed covered by thick clouds that blocked the light beneath them. The darkness was not made of smoke. It was alive. It moved. It spread wherever hatred, greed, violence, and deception were welcomed. I watched with amazement as invisible battles unfolded above countries all over the world. I saw prayers rising from humble believers like streams of brilliant light. Some prayers became mighty rivers that pushed back the darkness. Others appeared as tiny flames that refused to go out, even in places filled with suffering. Then my eyes were drawn toward the great continent of Africa. My heart began to race. From north to south and from east to west, I saw extraordinary beauty, vast deserts, mighty rivers, green forests, fertile fields, bustling cities, and millions upon millions of people created in the image of God. Yet I also heard something that pierced my soul. It was a cry, not the cry of one person, not even one nation. It sounded like the cries of countless mothers praying for peace, fathers struggling to provide for their families, children longing to grow up without fear, pastors praying through the night, widows calling on God for justice, and young people dreaming of a future they could not yet see. The cries rose toward heaven like incense. I felt tears filling my eyes. "Lord," I whispered, "why is there so much suffering?" Jesus looked at me with compassion. "My heart has never turned away from them," he replied. I hear every prayer. I see every tear. I know every child who sleeps hungry and every family that fears tomorrow. Heaven is never deaf to the cries of the oppressed. His words filled me with hope. Then the vision changed again. I saw beautiful lands overflowing with natural resources, gold beneath the earth, fertile soil, flowing rivers, and people filled with talent and creativity. Yet many of these places appeared weak and wounded. I could not understand. Lord, I asked, why do lands with so many blessings still struggle? Jesus answered with a sadness that I cannot fully describe. A nation is not strengthened by what lies beneath its soil alone. It is strengthened by what lives within the hearts of its people. As he spoke, I saw corruption take shape, like heavy chains wrapping themselves around cities and villages. Every lie forged another link. Every act of greed tightened the chains. Every abuse of power made them heavier still. Then I saw something else. Whenever a person chose honesty instead of deceit, whenever a judge defended the innocent, whenever a leader placed the needs of the people above personal gain, whenever a business owner refused to cheat, whenever a teacher chose integrity, whenever a young person rejected bribery, the chains weakened, some even shattered completely. I realized that corruption was not merely a political problem. It was a spiritual disease that began in the human heart. Jesus looked toward me. Many people pray for me to change their nation, he said, but I also call each person to let me change them. Those words settled deep within my spirit. Then I witnessed another astonishing sight. Across Africa and across many other parts of the world, I saw ordinary believers praying in simple homes, under trees, inside small churches, in hospitals, in refugee camps, and even while walking to work. None of them considered themselves important. Many believed no one noticed their prayers. Yet from heaven's perspective, each sincere prayer rose like a brilliant flame. As thousands of prayers joined together, they became rivers of light that spread across entire regions. Darkness retreated wherever those rivers flowed. I stared in amazement. Lord, I asked, do these people know what their prayers are accomplishing? Jesus smiled. Most of them do not. They think they are weak because the world does not know their names, but heaven measures greatness differently. His words echoed through my soul. The greatest victories often begin with unseen faithfulness. Then I saw kings, presidents, judges, generals, pastors, business leaders, and people of influence standing before the throne of God. Their titles had disappeared. Their uniforms had disappeared. Their wealth had disappeared. No applause followed them. No crowd surrounded them. Each person stood alone before perfect truth. I expected heaven to ask how many followers they had gained, how much land they had ruled, how many victories they had won. Instead, I heard different questions. Did you defend the weak? Did you seek justice? Did you walk in humility? Did you serve those entrusted to your care? Did you love truth more than power? In that moment, I understood something I had never truly grasped while living on earth. God does not measure greatness by popularity, military strength, or human applause. He measures greatness by justice, humility, mercy, integrity, and faithful service. Jesus turned toward me one final time before the vision faded. Never place your hope completely in any human leader, he said. Pray for them, encourage what is righteous, reject what is evil. But remember that every ruler is accountable to me, and every citizen has the power to choose truth, mercy, and faithfulness. His words remained alive within me. I sensed that he was preparing to show me one final vision, one that would forever change the way I understood leadership, courage, and the destiny of nations. The glorious vision around me became quiet. For a moment, there was only the radiant presence of Jesus and the deep peace that surrounded him. Then he looked at me with eyes full of both compassion and purpose. "My son," he said, "many people spend their lives searching for the secrets of powerful men. They ask who will rise, who will fall, who is favored, and who is forgotten. But heaven is not captivated by power. Heaven is concerned with the condition of the heart." As he spoke those words, another vision unfolded before me. I saw a vast African landscape stretching across mountains, forests, rivers, and deserts. Millions of people filled the land. Some rejoiced, others wept. Some prayed with hope, while others cried out in despair. Then one figure emerged from among the countless faces. I recognized him immediately, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Yet this was unlike any image I had ever seen on television or in newspapers. He stood alone on a high hill, dressed in a military uniform, looking over an enormous land. There were no cheering crowds around him, no cameras, no speeches, no applause, only silence. The silence felt heavier than any battlefield. I looked at Jesus. "Lord," I asked, "why are you showing me this?" Jesus answered gently, "I am not showing you hidden political knowledge. I am showing you a lesson about leadership." As I watched, an enormous burden appeared on the captain's shoulders. It was unlike anything I had ever seen. It was invisible to those on earth, yet in the vision, it looked heavier than solid iron. Within that burden were the hopes of mothers praying for peace, the dreams of children longing for education, the cries of widows seeking justice, the expectations of young people searching for opportunity, the fears of soldiers, the hunger of villages, the weight of every difficult decision. I was astonished. I had never imagined that leadership could carry such a burden. Jesus spoke again. "Many admire authority because they see the position." He paused, "but very few understand the weight that comes with it." Then the vision changed. I saw many roads stretching out before the captain. One road glittered with praise. Crowds lined its sides, shouting his name. They lifted banners. They celebrated him. The road looked beautiful from a distance, but when I looked more closely, I noticed that it slowly narrowed until it ended at a deep cliff hidden beneath thick fog. Another road looked very different. It was rough, rocky, steep, almost empty. Few people walked beside it. There was little applause. Many misunderstood those who chose that path. Yet in the distance, a brilliant light shone upon it. I looked toward Jesus. "What do these roads mean?" He answered, "Every leader is offered many paths. One seeks human praise, another seeks justice. One feeds the ego, the other requires humility. One is easy for a season, the other demands sacrifice. No leader can walk both." As his words echoed through my heart, another scene appeared. Dark shadows approached from every direction. They whispered into the captain's ears, "You deserve more honor. Your enemies must be destroyed. Take revenge. Trust only yourself. Accept the worship of the people." The whispers grew louder and louder until they sounded like a storm. Then, from another direction, I heard a gentle voice. It did not shout. It simply said, "Walk humbly. Seek wisdom, love justice, fear God more than you fear people." Immediately I understood. The greatest battles of leadership are often fought where no one can see them, not on television, not in government buildings, not on battlefields, but inside the human heart. Jesus turned toward me. "Pride has destroyed more leaders than poverty." His words struck me deeply. "Power is never the greatest test," he continued. "The greater test is whether power changes the heart. Then I noticed something extraordinary. Far away from the captain, scattered across villages, towns, and cities, ordinary people were praying. An elderly woman knelt beside her small bed before sunrise. A farmer stopped working for a moment and lifted his hands toward heaven. A young child folded his hands before eating. A pastor prayed through the night in a tiny church. A widow whispered prayers while tears rolled down her face. None of them knew one another. None imagined that their prayers mattered. Yet as each prayer rose toward heaven, it became a beam of brilliant light. Thousands of beams joined together, then millions. Those streams of light surrounded the land like a protective covering. Some of the dark shadows trying to spread fear and hatred could not pass through them. I stared in amazement. "Lord," I whispered, "are these prayers really making a difference?" Jesus smiled. "Far more than they realize. The prayers of ordinary people have preserved nations that history believed would collapse. They may never stand behind a podium. They may never command an army. They may never appear in the news. But heaven knows every one of their names." Tears filled my eyes. All my life I had believed that only famous people changed history. Now I saw that countless unknown believers were quietly shaping the destiny of nations through faithfulness, compassion, and prayer. The vision slowly faded. Captain Ibrahim Traoré disappeared from sight, and once again I stood in the glorious presence of Jesus. Only then did I understand the secret I had longed to know. It was not a hidden prophecy. It was not a political mystery. It was not information meant to satisfy curiosity. The true secret was this: no leader is sustained by strength alone. Every leader is accountable to God. Every heart is tested by power. And the future of nations is shaped not only by those who govern, but also by the countless ordinary men and women whose prayers, integrity, and quiet obedience are known in heaven, even when they are unknown on earth. Jesus looked at me with a tenderness I will never forget. "My son," he said, "tell the people not to make idols out of leaders. Honor what is good. Pray for those who carry responsibility. But place your deepest trust in God alone, for kingdoms rise and fall, yet my kingdom stands forever." His words settled into my soul like living fire. I sensed that my journey through eternity was drawing to a close. One final message remained before I would return to the world of the living, sent back with a warning for the world. As the final vision faded, I found myself standing once again before Jesus. The brilliance of his presence filled everything around me. There were no shadows in that place. Every breath seemed alive with peace. Every moment was saturated with a love that words can never fully capture. For a long while, I simply gazed at him. I wanted nothing more than to remain there forever. There was no fear, no sickness, no violence, no sorrow, no hunger, no death. For the first time in my existence, I understood what true life really was. Then Jesus looked at me with such tenderness that tears filled my eyes before he spoke. "Amadou." Hearing him call my name again filled me with indescribable joy. "My Lord," I whispered, "please, let me stay with you." He smiled. It was the smile of someone who understood every longing hidden within my heart. But then his expression became solemn. "My son," he said gently, "your work on earth is not yet finished." Those words pierced me. I looked down, unable to hide my disappointment. "I don't want to go back," I admitted. "There is nothing on earth that compares to being here with you." Jesus placed his hand upon my shoulder. "I know." His voice carried both authority and compassion. "But there are people whose prayers have not yet been answered through your obedience. There are hearts that must be encouraged. There are souls who have forgotten eternity. They must hear what you have seen." At that moment, I realized this experience had never been meant for me alone. It was a message that had to be carried back to the world. Jesus lifted his hand, and before us appeared countless faces from every nation. I saw children laughing, parents embracing their families, farmers working their fields, students sitting in classrooms, doctors caring for the sick, prisoners crying in lonely cells, pastors preaching, leaders making difficult decisions, rich and poor, young and old, people from every race and language. Then Jesus spoke words that seemed to echo throughout eternity. Tell them, my invitation is still open. As he spoke, 5 truths settled deep within my spirit. They were simple enough for a child to understand, yet profound enough to change the course of a life. The first was this: return to God. Jesus said, "Many people seek success before seeking me. They chase wealth, influence, and comfort, believing these things will satisfy the emptiness within them. But every human heart was created to know its Creator. No earthly achievement can replace my presence." As he spoke, I saw people from every nation running after things that could never truly satisfy them. Some pursued money, others pursued fame, others sought power. Yet the farther they ran from God, the emptier they became. Then I saw others who humbled themselves in prayer. Though some had little by worldly standards, their hearts overflowed with peace because they walked with Him. The second message was this: pray for your leaders. Jesus looked upon the nations with compassion. Leadership carries great responsibility, he said. Do not spend your lives consumed by hatred or endless arguments. Pray that those entrusted with authority will seek wisdom, justice, and mercy. Pray that they will have the courage to choose what is right, even when it is difficult. I remembered the vision of the heavy burden resting upon the shoulders of leaders. In that moment, I understood that prayer is one of the greatest gifts ordinary people can offer. The third message pierced my own heart. Forgive quickly. Suddenly, I saw people dragging enormous chains behind them. Some chains were made of bitterness, others of resentment, others of old wounds that had never healed. Jesus looked at them with sorrow. Unforgiveness keeps many people imprisoned long after the offense has passed. Then he looked at me. Forgiveness does not call evil good, he said. It releases your heart from becoming a prisoner of it. As I have shown you mercy, show mercy to others. I thought about people who had hurt me over the years. Some wounds had remained hidden deep inside my heart. In his presence, I realized I could no longer carry them. The fourth message came with unmistakable clarity. Do not worship politicians or any human being. Jesus said, honor those who serve with integrity, respect lawful authority, encourage what is good, but never give to any person the trust that belongs to God alone. Then I saw kings, presidents, military commanders, judges, religious leaders, business owners. Every one of them eventually laid down their titles before the throne of God. No earthly position lasted forever. Only the condition of the heart remained. Every leader, Jesus said, will one day stand before perfect justice. Those words reminded me that hope must never rest entirely upon any human ruler. Our deepest confidence belongs in God. Then came the fifth and final message. It was spoken so gently that it almost sounded like a loving invitation. Live each day ready to meet eternity. The vision changed once more. I saw people making plans for tomorrow. Some were building homes. Others were preparing weddings. Children played joyfully in the streets. Businesses opened. Schools welcomed students. Life continued as it always had. Then, in an instant, some were called into eternity, not because God delighted in taking them, but because no one knows the day or the hour when earthly life will end. Jesus looked at me with eyes overflowing with love. If people remembered eternity more often, he said, they would love more deeply, forgive more freely, serve more humbly, and waste less of the precious time they have been given. Silence filled heaven. I knew our conversation was ending. Then Jesus embraced me. No words can describe that embrace. Every fear disappeared. Every wound was healed. Every question found its answer. My son, he whispered, do not fear death. Fear only a life lived far from me. The light around him suddenly grew brighter than before, so bright that I could no longer see anything else. Then I heard distant voices. Someone was crying. Another person was shouting. Hands were pressing against my chest. The sounds grew louder. The brilliant light faded. I gasped. Air rushed painfully into my lungs. My eyes flew open. Above me were frightened faces covered in tears. Someone cried out, "He's alive!" Another man dropped to his knees and began praising God. I looked down at my chest. The pain was real. The blood was real. The desert was real. But so was heaven. Nothing could ever convince me that what I had experienced was merely a dream. The fear of death that had followed me all my life was gone. My desire for wealth no longer controlled me. Bitterness no longer had a place in my heart. Every sunrise became a reminder that life is a gift. Every person I met became someone made in the image of God. Every prayer became precious. I returned to my family, but I was not the same man who had left them that morning. The shepherd who had fallen beneath the burning sun of the Sahel died that day. The man who stood up carried a different heart, and until my final breath, I will continue telling the world what changed me forever. Earth is temporary. Power is temporary. Fame is temporary. But the love of Jesus, the call to repentance, and the hope of eternity are everlasting. That is the message I was sent back to share.